Welcome to the Caddo Convos, the podcast that explores the vibrant community of businesses thriving in Caddo Office Reimagined. We're here to shine a light on the incredible entrepreneurs and professionals who make the most of our private offices, co-working spaces, and day office rentals in the Dallas-Fort Worth suburbs. Join us as we share their stories, celebrate their successes, and dive into the benefits of working in a space that's close to home but offers so much more than working from home. Let's get started with today's conversation. So joining me today on the Caddo Convos podcast is my new friend, Jake Thompson from Compete Every Day. How you doing, Jake?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Let's talk about how you help your customers. Tell me about your business and the types of customers that you can help.
Yeah, so I'm a keynote speaker and leadership performance coach. I work with sales teams all over the country, construction teams, really any organization that has a desire to be a high performance culture and develop their leaders. And so we work with people from our local Dallas Cowboys to Pfizer to Deloitte to small businesses from East Coast to West Coast, really helping them, one, build the right competitive mindset. We understand business is a competitive game is the best way to describe it. And so how do we have the right mindset to not get caught in the comparison trap? And then how do we actually develop our leaders? Understanding there are natural abilities everyone has, different strengths they can lead into from a leadership standpoint, but leadership is a learned skill. And so we do our best to equip leaders with how do you actually level up? And then in turn, how do you level up your people?
That's great. So how did you get to where you are in this level of your career to help people the way you do?
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting journey. I started Compete Every Day back in 2011 as a side hustle. I had a marketing consulting practice living in the Addison area of North Dallas, and just had this idea of what would it look like if you stopped living in comparison and started competing with yourself? What would that do? I was living out that principle. I was probably 60 pounds heavier than I am now. Superficial relationships, very unhappy with the work I was doing. And so when I started applying this mindset over 5, 6, 7, 8 months, I started to obviously change physically, but mentally I changed a lot. And my confidence grew. The results I was starting to achieve with a career started to show up differently. People just ask, like, what are you doing? I was like, man, I'm just competing every day with myself. And so enough conversations and some prodding from my best friend. I was like, man, you got to do something with this. And so I launched the t-shirt company, selling shirts out of the trunk of my car as a side hustle, and it took off. Traveled the country from 2011 till 2018, 17 to 18, working expos, CrossFit competitions, rock and roll marathons, events all over, trying to spread this idea and this message of competing every day with yourself. And as you can imagine, the more people we have conversations with, the more opportunities are like, hey, will you come talk to our team about that? And so in 2014, 15, I would get random opportunities to come speak, to come teach it, having a background just in leadership development, being a sports psychology junkie and studying everything around mindset and growth mindset, Carol Dweck's work. How do we translate it into the work we do today? A lot of the, man, I wish I knew this when I was younger type information. And in 2018, ran across a company that actually taught people how to build a speaking business and was fascinated by it around the idea of how do I just improve my communication skills. And what I found is I fell in love with the work. And so at the end of 2018, we kind of shifted our business away from exclusive e-commerce and wholesale retail to what we do today, which is primarily my keynote speaking. We still have the apparel business, right, in the Caddo offices. We still warehouse some of our inventory. We ship it out every day for orders online, especially this holiday season. But my work is spent traveling the U.S., working with those teams and groups on how do we be more competitive with ourselves and collaborative with our peers, understanding it takes more than just us to reach our potential. We need the right people around us. And so it's been an interesting ebb and flow, but the way I typically tell people is the mission from the beginning has never changed. How do I help people get better about competing intrinsically versus chasing the external rewards that fade? And then additionally, the way and how just worked out because I made some different relationships and connections and doors were open and they were willing to refer me and other people. And we just kind of ran with it from there.
One, I love the concept of competing with yourself because you're the person that has to get yourself out of bed every day.
That's right. And this time of year, that's the hard one, right? It's dark later. The bed feels so warm when it's cold outside. But it's also to that point, the only person you control is you. Like there's no one else, right? And so we have to master the man in the glass, as we might say, right? And take control of that because as business owners and people that, are in our Caddo communities understand, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And for a lot of us, like the days we don't feel good, the days we lack the motivation, the days the circumstances aren't ideal are still the days we have to show up and give our best. And if we make the excuses to not give our best, our businesses don't last. And so it's about that every single day consistency that is so hard to stick to, but compounds over time to create some pretty cool results.
So tell me about one of your favorite clients. You don't have to mention them by name, but how did you get in the door? What did you do for them? How are they doing now?
Yeah, so really interesting. There's probably two that come to mind, top of mind. And I would say the first client I'll think of is a group out of Florida that honestly, they bought like 30 shirts for their team. And so we got a large bulk order, which typically comes through wholesale and not direct. And I happened to catch it. And so I just included a little note. Well, then like a week and a half after they got the order, they ordered another set of a different shirt. And so I sent an email of like, hey, no idea who's monitoring this company email, but notice these things came through. Just wanted to say thanks. If there's anything we can do for your team, don't hesitate to reach out. Well, the CEO ends up calling because he wants to order another shirt. He's like, hey, maybe we can get a bulk discount on this. And so I answer the call that comes in through our Google voice line, and we start talking a little bit, and he realizes I'm the owner and I do some coaching. And so I ended up going and doing a keynote for their team. And after we finished the keynote, and this would be in October of 21, he said, hey, I want you to coach our people. Like everything we talked about in this 60 minutes, like I love this. Like this is my world as a former athlete. But how do I get my culture to really buy into it? And so we ended up working together the entire following year. I worked with them from January of 22 all the way through March of 23, going out to Florida, spending time coaching their leaders. And it was really cool because during that period, we had a crazy growth, right? So their company went from about 12 mil a year to about 36 million a year in that short span. Their staff doubled. So they went from 40-ish, 45 people to almost 100. And so it was a stage of rapid growth that a lot of businesses start to crumble when that happens. And we were really intentional with the culture and reinforcing the right culture and values in people, but then making sure we were equipping the people with the skill set. So that was a fun project. The CEO has since moved on to another organization, and he and I still talk. And actually, I had the chance 2 weeks ago to go to Florida to work with one of the people I had a chance to work with one-on-one with that team, who's now with another company. And so I got to go do a sales training for their national team a couple weeks ago, which was fun. The other guy, one of the other groups we worked with this year in the insurance space, they're a rapidly growing insurance team. And the head of growth, I would say the VP of growth, has followed me on LinkedIn for like 3 or 4 years. He might have a shirt or two. I think he read one of my first books. But he just engages all of my content on LinkedIn because I'll post anywhere from 4 to 6 times a week, and had an opportunity to finally do it. It was their first sales kickoff event. And so they reached out through a speaker bureau and direct. And so we set up a deal for March to do their annual kickoff event to really embed this mentality of how do we be more competitive with what we control. And it was really cool because when we got to August, so that was early March, in August, I went to a small retreat that they had for their top performers. And we did just a Q&A. We did a 30-minute Q&A about habits, about now that we're just over the halfway point, what do we do for the second half to reset and refocus? And it was really cool listening to them talk about, since that session, some of the weekly activities we teach, like a start, stop, continue, like a reflection process, pre and post sales call, how they've implemented it, and then some other tactics they'd picked up from the book. And so their questions were almost like build on, hey, I've been doing this since our session. I've seen this improvement in my book of business, but now what do I do going in? Or how do I handle it if I feel like I can't turn it off? And so we've watched their organization grow pretty rapidly and just happened to be right place, right time where we could help equip those people to go do the work. The thing I love, like when I have those partnerships, I can go in and coach and develop their people. It's fun. But even on the keynote side, I probably interview prospects as much as they interview me, because the last thing I want to do is you hire me for a 60 or 90-minute session to come in, help the theme, teach the message and the content, but then there's no follow through on the back end. It's just a very expensive pep rally. I would much rather see people have behavioral change. And so what can we do to equip your leaders to hold them accountable? And I want to make sure your leaders and people at the top have the mindset that, okay, we're going to take this and run with it. It may not be pretty, it's not going to be perfect, but we're going to start implementing it, because then everybody wins in that situation.
You're here at Caddo Office Reimagined like I am. Why did you choose this place for your location?
So this is a pretty funny story. This would have been 2020. So this was pre the Caddo branding and redo, but my wife and I lived in the colony at the time. We were south of Frisco, and I had done outsourced fulfillment. So for the first 2011 to 16, 17, we fulfilled internally. I had a person that ran our warehouse, did all the shipments. We had people that would come on board during holiday season. And I was starting to travel a little bit more. I was kind of going to this coaching and learning stuff. And so I looked at 2 different fulfillment companies. And so 2017 to January of 2020, we had outsourced it. We'd put all of our stuff in another warehouse. We had a third-party logistics company do it, and it was a disaster. It was one of the hardest lessons in business I've had to learn of losing control of that customer service and experience. And I just hit a breaking point in late January after a couple of new orders had been messed up. And I was like, screw it. I have no idea what the plan is. I'm getting it all. And so I show up at this warehouse with a U-Haul and it was like, load it up. We're done. And I was like, I don't know where I'm going to go. And so I took it back home and filled our garage. And my poor wife, like it was floor to ceiling all over the garage. And then 6 weeks later, COVID hits. And so I'm like, well, I'm glad I have all the inventory at home because we can still ship it and put it on the front porch, but I can't keep doing this. 1, I don't need to be shipping our orders, like we have a team for it. And 2, if I start traveling, what do we do? And so I started looking at office space, and I was looking around DFW, and I wanted to be really intentional about a couple of things. First, I love the co-working aspect of the office suites if I'm traveling, if I'm on the go, if we have a delivery and I'm not in that day, knowing somebody's in there in the building secure versus, hey, we're going to just leave it outside on a porch in the rain of a warehouse. The other aspect is the ability to connect with other business owners because business can be lonely, especially if you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, a place like that. So I interviewed a handful of places. And what I really liked about this spot, 1, location, it ended up being like 2.5 miles from our house. When my wife and I decided to move, we literally were just driving up, looking at this house that we ended up putting an offer and moving into later that year. And I drove right by the office and I was like, oh, that if we get this, like that's perfect. Like I can run that on some days. And so we did. So then I took a tour and I just lucked out as I laugh and have told Liz who runs kind of our community there in Frisco now, like the largest office was there. And Olga, who used to be the community manager there, they just happened to have one space that was the largest room available. The people that had a studio had moved out, a radio show. And I was like, this is the only one that would work in the entire building because it's enough that it could warehouse our inventory and I can still work there. And so the timing and everything just hit perfectly to where we moved in. And as over the last couple of years, they've invested in some of the remodel and up-leveling the visuals. And now what I love is not only does the Frisco location look great, and it still has worked perfectly for us, but my in-laws live right next to the Flower Mound location, like right next to it. And so on holidays or where we're over there seeing family, like I can sneak over there for a couple of hours to knock some stuff out and have a great place to go work or whiteboard or go out to Fort Worth and all of that. So the locations for meetings and stuff has made it really helpful, but honestly, convenience and timing, it just worked perfectly for us.
Especially for people like us who have small businesses, but we like to be close to home for family and all the right things. That's great.
Yeah.
What would you say? Let's going back to your business. What is the favorite thing? Like what you are competing with yourself, right? So you have to get yourself out of bed. What gets you out of bed? What's the favorite part of what you do?
Man, it's funny. I was telling somebody this yesterday. I was just at a summit this past weekend for the National Speakers Association and a group of us that have earned a select designation within our association. And I said, man, the thing I love is I still pinch myself that I get to do this for a living. And people are like, man, you deal with TSA and planes and canceled. I was like, yeah, but I get to go teach. Like that's essentially what I do is go stand on stage and teach and help people because I truly believe people want to do better work. Right? They want to show up better as a parent. They want to show up better for their customers. They just want to get better. But oftentimes we're overloaded by information on what to do. We're frustrated. We're beat down because we're stuck in a comparison trap. And so it's not a lack of potential or even desire. It's kind of a beat down of life. And so if I can put that spark in someone or teach them how simple the process is, right? It's not easy, but it's simple if we look in the right spots, then it lights me up. And that gets me up and going. And so that's kind of the mission, the why. And I would say the other one is I love the craft. I love the craft of learning how to better communicate and better write, both verbally and written communication. And so I'm always hiring coaches and testing stuff. I spent today working on a new keynote with a coach back and forth. And so that constant challenge, the game of business, I would say, because there is no finish line. You're always going, but there's always something to get a little bit better at. And if you get a little bit better at it, you're like, oh, okay, I can do that. Let me try this now and see if I can get better at that. And okay, cool. Who do I need to learn from? And so that constant state of growth and just up-leveling yourself is what I think is the most fun when I pair that with getting to do the why behind it all.
And it sounds like a great recommendation for you, for those who are listening, is someone who wants to invest in their people. Leaders who really, because a well-trained workforce and a well-trained team, well, one, when they're invested in like that for great training, they feel empowered to do their job and they feel cared for. Do you share that opinion?
1,000%. It's interesting. I have a stat that we talk about in my second book that says 71% of people between 2021 and 2023 that left their job without another one in hand. So they just threw deuces out the door, didn't have anything lined up, report doing so because of a lack of feedback and appreciation from their manager or boss. And that's a super correctable challenge, especially as business owners. We know the cost of replacing somebody. Not only the lost productivity of being shorthanded, but having to onboard and recruit and all the other assets in place. And so when you've got people that invest in their people, right, and develop them, the cultures start to thrive and people stick around and feel appreciated because it's, now we're doing this virtually, like we've never met in person. There's so many opportunities to work virtually and remote and all over the place that people can go anywhere almost and do the same job. And so they're looking for somewhere where somebody investing in me to develop me personally and professionally, where's somebody giving me feedback so I can get better and improve. And those are the type of environments, regardless of what our business looks like people want to be a part of because they're buying into you and where you're trying to go and how you're trying to help others because you've invested in them.
You mentioned your second book. Let's talk about your books.
Yeah. So I've got 3 with the 4th one coming in April. So Compete Every Day is my first one. Basic 7 choices, simple on the surface, difficult to execute. But if you do, they're game changers. Second book was called Lead Better Now. It's all about this leadership journey we just talked about. Leading yourself, knowing your people, and improving how you communicate. If you can get those 3 fundamentals, changes a culture. And then my newest book, the 3rd book, just came out this fall. It's called The Line. It's a fictional story based around Texas high school football. But one of the things I get asked at a ton of my keynotes is, what do you have for my kid? My kid plays middle school or high school or college sports. Oh, I wish they could have heard you. And I didn't have a resource. And so we wrote a story around that of how do you get out of comparison? How do you focus on being a great teammate and leader and understanding the difference between coming up an inch short and actually touching the line on those sprints, on those practices, on the basketball court, the football field, that actually pays dividends throughout life. And so those are the 3 books. The 4th one coming out in April is called Beat Yesterday. Stop chasing the rest and start competing to be your best.
And those are available on Amazon?
They're all available on Amazon. And then you can also get them at CompeteEveryday.com. And if you're at Frisco, Caddo, come on by and swing by the office. I'll sign a copy for you.
That's awesome. So best way to reach you is through your online portal, or tell me.
Best place to connect. You can find more about our brand at CompeteEveryday.com. My website, direct website's jakeathompson.com. You'll see more about my speaking programs and things like that. And then if you're on social media, I typically only hang out in 2 places. You can find me on LinkedIn or you can find me on Instagram. And my username on both is Jake Thompson Speaks.
Terrific. Real easy to find there. Parting thoughts as we close out the show, Jake.
Man, I would say if we're airing this at end of the year or beginning of the year, it really doesn't matter. I would say the biggest challenge I get for people is it's so easy today to get distracted, right? There's so many things going on in life, whether it's holiday parties, whether it's start of the new year excitement, that it's easy to get off track with the goals you have. And we know, especially in January, people start the year strong, and within 3 weeks, 84% have given up on their New Year's resolutions because we try to be too perfect or we try to go too big. And so the thing I always challenge people is, what's the small move, the thing that takes you less than 10 minutes, that if you did every single day over the next week, may not make much of a difference, but if you could stick with it over the next year, would be a game changer in improving your mindset or your attitude or your relationships. Whatever that thing is, I challenge you to spend a few minutes thinking about, chewing on, and then give it a shot. It's just 10 minutes. We all can do it. And I bet if you are questioning it, I can find it on your screen time and your cell phone apps that we can pull it from somewhere else. But it's the small choices and the small moves we make that make the biggest differences when we apply them consistently. So I would challenge you to make 2026 the year of small choices that compound.
That's wonderful. Well, Jake, appreciate you being on the show and just sharing, your passion for what you do and clearly how much you enjoy doing it for others.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us today on the Caddo Convos podcast. A huge shout out to our incredible network of members for making our community vibrant and supportive. If you're looking to boost your productivity and reduce the isolation of working from home, consider joining us at Caddo Office Reimagine. Our spaces are designed to meet your evolving needs, support remote work, and foster a sense of community that's hard to find at home. Whether you're a startup aiming for growth, a freelancer seeking a professional setting, or a company looking to optimize resources, Caddo offers a perfect blend of flexibility and innovation. By joining us, you'll be a part of a dynamic business ecosystem that helps you thrive. For more information, visit caddooffices.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Caddo Convos.